different. That's a
black
different.
people.
That's a different.
I think it's more complicated than that.
No, why do you think it's more complicated?
Let me tell you, as a black. Hold on, I want to speak on a personal experience. You have to be careful labeling any group as a whole.
Not just
on a personal note.
Okay.
Number two, you gotta look at a population sample. How many black men are you basing this off of?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do I believe it's there? Absolutely. But to say all black men,
but that's
what we do with white people.
All right, so we're back. Everybody,
no, but the
we're
thing
back,
is,
we're
there's
back.
no absolutes in anything. There's never an absolute. But will I say that black men can be demeaning and can be whatever?
So y'all, we're back. Yes. We're back. Welcome back to Woke Wednesdays. We do this every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Welcome back.
So part of this. So when it comes to arguments too, it shouldn't just be. This is my opinion. This is my. Right. Yeah, I think it calls for that at times, but I think we also have to.
Feelings are not facts. We should
feeling, but also
factual.
Base it. If we're doctoral students, if we're doctoral students, we should also be able to address this and analyze this in an intellectual way.
Absolutely.
Right? So when I say these questions are a lot more complicated and the answers to this merit complex answers, I do believe that. Right? So yeah, when we're talking about absolutes, absolutely. Right. And that's a very like white thing. Like white people say that like, well, I'm not a racist white person. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about a system as a whole, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of it. The other part is that the American language, the United States, we have a very specialized language when it comes to race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very, like, Europeans invented racism, but Americans have perfected it, right? Even the language around it. But what we do not address oftentimes is class, right? So when we say, the question was, black men being the white people of black people, right? Black women can be, in a way, if we're going to make this complex argument, the white people of also black people, because when we throw in class, right? When we have, you're highly educated, you're very well off monetarily, high echelon type of people, and then we have, then we have very poor people of.
Greg, hold on.
But what I'm saying is, that class complicates a lot of things, but we often don't address it.
We should absolutely talk about class, but that was not the point of the article. This was
what article?
There was an article on Very Smart Brothers called "Black Men Are the White People."
So I had no idea what the article was about, so I didn't read it.
I didn't make that up. It was written.
I was going off the question that was asked,
and I quoted the article based off of that comment, and now I'm gonna explain.
Oh, go for it. And then we're gonna get into the other part of the show.
So, black men are the white people of black people for the following reasons. A. Black men absolutely are underprivileged because of race,
disenfranchised.
Disenfranchised. Okay, that's the perfect term. However, they still benefit from systems of patriarchy. There are so A. B. It's not particularly just black men. It's actually black straight men. Because there are.
That's interesting. Okay.
Because you're talking about tying in other things.
No, intersectionality is important. Yeah.
Exactly. So tying in sexuality and gender expression and those things is very important because there are, and I've encountered a lot of them, unfortunately, a subset of black men who feel like the only key to liberation is the uplift of straight black men. And in that narrative, there is rarely space for you if you have a vagina, you if you like the same sex, you if you do not believe in putting the black man on that pedestal, regardless of if you are black and identify as black or the work you do in the black community. In their eyes, the only way that the black community will move forward is if we uplift straight black men. Everyone else is a distraction. What does that sound like? White people. So that article actually was like super controversial because black men were like, whoa.
No, yeah, I think it's a brilliant argument. It's very smart.
However, it was literally just about like the ways in which black men do the same things to their own people that white people do to us, the things we complain about all the time. And to go back to the conversation, which was about encountering racism in graduate school. The year that I came,
you didn't address class though.
Do I have to?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's important to this conversation.
Class is important, but the thing with class is that class is not something that you can see, and it's like it's here's what I'm gonna say. So when I walk into the room, you can see that I'm a black woman. If I walk into the room with my partner, if I had one, you can see that I'm a black cis woman.
But
right?
you can't see homosexuality. You brought that up as a point. You can't see that.
You cannot see it. However, if someone wants to be very outward with their sexuality, so if you're talking like a holiday social,
you're talking about a performance. Someone can perform.
And someone is right. Yeah. Like there are ways in which one can perform class, but to me, and maybe I'm wrong. This is a conversation, right? But to me, performing class just takes a little bit more effort.
I go for it.
And this is, it's funny you talked about this article because yes, it was a very, very hotly discussed article. Amongst some black men that I know, the anger is because not all of us are against helping black women in any capacity or working with, not looking at as a woman behind us, but as a woman with us. One of the best discussions I had with a fellow frat brother was black men get mad at this because it's like, and this is an older black man who feels like he's watching the feminist movement over again separate the African American community. So I kind of pushed him. I was like, well, what do you mean? He was like, a lot of people, and I've heard this from women, male, black, white, that the feminist movement negatively impacted the black community, and it's now we are again arguing with each other. And it goes back to my point that I personally feel that can black men be demeaning, detrimental, and all these things? Yes. But I also look at what was the cause of that, right? So when you look at things like how welfare, and I have family that was on welfare, in order to receive certain things, that man has to be gone. Right. Going further even back, when we look at what happened during slavery, am I blaming slavery for what it? No, but I'm looking at the effects. So when you look at the hypermasculinity and the hypersexuality of the black man, that doesn't excuse the act, but I have to look at the causality of it to go, okay, and I'm speaking also personally. When I was young, it was just like, all right, you go out and it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna holler at a bitch. Then you got to think about, wait a minute, why am I calling this woman a bitch, right? Because if someone called my sister that, or my mom's, I want to put hands on you.
I was saying that.
And there's a lot of men that don't grow up. And again, I'm not making excuses. For me, on a personal level, when my mom died, that was the first time I had to start confronting some of my own personal demons of what I thought what a man was, let alone being a black man. And one of the few books that changed my life, T.D. Jakes has a book called Emotions that really delves into it if you got a partner or you're just by yourself. What does that mean? And a lot of men who act like this don't know who they are personally. Mm-hmm. So does that make an excuse? No. But a lot of men have, I was blessed to have a grandma that was like, you call her that, I'm gonna put hands on you. Or older dudes that did that. So you have a lot of wayward men, just like in some ways when someone sees a woman and call her a hoe and all that, we don't know what made her act this way. Was she abused? Was she molested? So don't be so quick to judge on what you see because you don't understand the causality.
But not just that. What is the impetus for us to even call her that?
Thank you. Right? Because all a hoe is someone who takes money for sex.
And even then, that is a very patriarchal thing because if a man does that, she's. But I'm not trying to mansplain. But what I will say is this, and I can share this article, and I talk about this article. And Natasha just said, or maybe she likes sex. Yeah.
Right.
When we look at racial uplift in the United States, right, post slavery, black women were going to school, and black men would very much, and I had a great article on this, would talk about how together they would say, we're all going to school for racial uplift. But when black men started attending white schools, started seeing how white men treated white women, right? And that women go to school for their MRS.
Yeah.
Right? For women to go to school for this reason.
Yeah.
They started to take that logic and apply it to their communities.
Yeah.
Right? And now we see this very much sexist ideologies being taken on. Because this stuff is not natural. This is conditioning. This is stuff that we're habituated to these types of logic. But I want to continue the conversation, right? Because we could dedicate a whole episode to this.
Right. Well, I was going to take it back to your point about racism in graduate school, because the year that I came in, there were 3 black women. There were 44 of us. There were 3 black women. There was 1 black guy. Wow. Right.
Crazy.
And he's dope, and he's my friend, and
that's awesome.
Yeah. But he had such and this partly was because he grew up in Buffalo, New York, and was very used to these settings. But he had a very easy time fitting in.
Yeah.
Is it UM?
Yes. Mm-hmm. He had a really easy time fitting in.
What do you mean by that?
He immediately got to hanging out with everybody. Everybody loved him.
Does that mean fitting in?
Yeah.
In the way that I'm defining it as fitting in for the purpose of this conversation.
Because we don't know that. Right. We don't know that. We can't know that.
Right. Right. Obviously, I wasn't even in the room with him and them, much less them when he wasn't around.
Sometimes fitting in is fitting out.
Sure. On the other hand, there was me. I sat in the back. I had come from a historically black college. I was used to being the majority. Very quickly, I went to being the minority. I was not ready for that. Withdrew socially. And one of the first conversations that I had with one of my classmates was about how he thought I was a different person every time I walked into class because I kept changing my hair. And I was like, oh, I know why I don't talk to y'all. This is why.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Was that offensive to you?
Super.
Yes.
Can I ask you why?
Because I look the same in the face.
Okay, but...
So if you paid attention to me as a person, and more than just an aesthetic piece that literally I can swap out. If I snatch this bun off right now, I'm a whole different person. So if you were actually paying attention to me as a person, me and my facial features, me and my big ass forehead, me and the gap between my teeth, me and the way that I speak.
But how much do we pay attention to people? That's very...
Oh, no. Because he knew every other of the 43 people in the room. It was just me who sat in the same spot in the back of the class, who all of a sudden had to be a new black girl every time.
That's good. No, I think these questions are important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was offended. I think you can still hear it in the tone of my voice.
Yeah. What about you, Laura?
My
or sexism, racism, or sexism, or both?
I would say my program's fairly small. There's a Jamaican woman, a Dominican woman, and me, a Mexican woman. So there's 3 of us in the program right now that I'm familiar with. So just a program being that small, the only thing that I see is that the professors don't represent the students, right? Yeah. So when it comes to interests, when it comes to specializations, it's like they're learning through us, and which has been a difficult process because you speak on certain things, you speak on certain experiences. I talk about white frameworks in math education, and to them they're like, this is all I know, right? But I'm like, I want to challenge those in math ed.
Yeah.
So something that I've learned through, of course, reflecting back, I'm always reaching back to my professors in undergrad because they represented us, especially in the the program I joined. So that one thing they say is you know what, these PhD professors claim they're experts, but they're not experts, right? So
What do you mean?
They're not. They're experts in a specialization, right? And even to that, they don't know they know to an extent what they're studying.
Don't have a degree for you.
Right,
right. No, but I think that's interesting for me, from someone who I just got my bachelor's, to understand what you mean. Because when I see PhDs and when I see people like you who are on panels and who are in PhD programs, I think of you as huh?
No, this is just a
right. Because look at how different our backgrounds are.
But that's what I'm saying. So to me, when I see people who have doctor in front of their name, I'm thinking you guys know everything, and I'm when she said math education.
One of the things, one of those scariest things about.
Do you get where I'm coming from?
I definitely feel you.
And someone who's seen it, I was kind of the same way, and I can't speak for anybody else, but one of the most humbling things about this process is you learn what you don't know.
Yeah.
Because the more you read and absorb this, you start to realize you are really pretty small. And I have a mentor. When he first told me, he was like, when you really get in this program, you're going to really learn what you don't know.
Yeah.
And for me, even when I recently, passed my qualifying exams, I was happy, but I was more humble. Wait a minute. what did you really pass?
Yeah.
You know, and people who carry this, and I'm sure all of us can probably speak to this to some capacity. When you got in the program, you were happy, but then you saw the work that came with it.
Yeah.
And it's no different than any degree, but at each level, as you get higher, it gets more intense and requires more.
Yeah.
And for me, I think I was personally humbled the most because I had to go back on the other side of the table. Because I had been a professor for 4 years already. So I was used to teaching and articulating, and I had to come back and truly be humbled to really learn again.
Yeah.
And even at the PhD level, I had an instructor. He was like, your opinion doesn't mean nothing until you get done with this dissertation.
Yeah.
And to hear that, it's like, bro, who are you?
But for someone who has a different experience, who has not been a professor, who has only been a student, I find it interesting that you say that you don't know everything, because from my own personal background and knowledge, when I see someone who has doctor in front of their name and I see someone who has a PhD, to me, and even in my interactions with Hurston, I look up to Hurston because
you should.
I feel like he's very educated and he knows about a lot. So to hear PhD students who feel like their own professors are inadequate in some way, I think that that's an interesting concept. And like you said, the way that academia,
with or without a PhD,
you know what I mean?
I do. With or without a PhD, people are only human.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know about the capacity of these, lovely folks' brains, but, there's no freaking way I'm going to learn everything.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. The purpose of PhD training isn't to know everything. It's to be able to digest information in an objective way. It's to be able to add to the field and,
to research.
To write, to communicate that work. That's the point. That's the point more than anything.
But even to add, I think, even to add to the field, someone has done everything.
Yeah.
Whether it's they published it or not, I feel like someone has been talking about everything.
Right.
So even when I'm I have this new idea.
Different people have.
Yeah, and I'm maybe it hasn't been published through a professor, but somebody has talked about this, but not because you have a fancy ass term, it gets published and you get recognized.
Yeah.
The whole code switching, for example.
Yeah.
I have family members who speak on that all the time. Mija, why is it that you can't have a conversation in Spanish without bringing your English in?
Yeah.
I'm Mom, because I get confused. Mija, you're just switching languages, and now I have a professor.
Yeah.
You have a professor who's who coded this term, code switching, who gets all this recognition. But I just think my thing to think about is that professor in undergrad who was a math educator. But when it came to me asking about what I would do in a term, and if I was in a circumstance with all students of color.
Yeah.
And she did not have an answer. So I'm how are you an expert in math education? You might have a specialization in fractions.
Yeah.
But I can't look up to you as an expert in this field because you don't know my experience.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is. So I think that's where it gets confusing. And something I've been saying, I'm I'm not going to let this PhD define how successful I am or how much I know because we're minor. Come on. I don't know. There's still so much that I'm learning every single day. Mm-hmm. Every single day.
Stephanie, so if you look at all of us, right? All of us are in doctoral programs.
Yeah.
Clearly everyone has a different take on something. There's a reason that we have a panel, right? I can have this conversation
by
myself about what it means to be a student of color in a doc program. I could talk about my experiences, but it's not about me, right? And to me, it's not about if someone is smarter than somebody else. That to me is pointless. It's a pointless argument to make. What do I get out of saying that I am smarter than this person or dumb? I literally get nothing. That's not what I'm about. She has an experience. She has an experience. We're doing degrees in different things.
Yeah.
We're teaching each other in different ways. I'm learning from people who don't have some of the people who I've learned the most from.
Don't have any formal
my mom, 3rd grade education in a developing country in Nicaragua, right? So there are different types of intelligences, right? There are different types of knowledges. So to even say that you're an expert in something, to me that tells me you're an arrogant asshole.
Yeah.
You deem yourself as an expert.
Yeah.
Wow. You are arrogant.
And I feel like that goes back to a conversation that we were previously having about the way that academia segregates and further disenfranchises peoples is that we can be from the same background. And perfect example, me and her, you know, my parents didn't finish high school. Well, my mom finished high school, but my parents don't have any formal education. I was the first person to go to college and finish. And we have the same ethnic background, but it's so different. And I think that that's just such an interesting experience. Like, I told my parents I want to go to grad school, and they were like, for what? You have a degree already. Like, what do you mean? That's more money. Like, that's more money. Like, why would you want to work so hard to do this? So I think that that's just an interesting thing. Yeah. Maybe not for everyone who's watching, because I'm not looking at the comments right now. But I know for me, like, my first instinct was, well, I don't need to go to grad school for this. I don't need to do that, whatever. But I think it's so interesting to see that there are doctoral students who don't think that even their professors know everything. Do you get what I'm saying? And like, I look at people who are PhD. When I first walked in here, I was like, oh my God, all these ethnic PhD students. I'm so excited. But then to see that you guys feel like, okay, even if we graduate, we don't know everything. And there's so much more to learn. So I think that that's an interesting concept to know that we have a PhD and we don't know everything. And there are people who don't know things. And there are people who still perpetuate these, like, differences to their own benefit.
No, you're right.
That's really it.
So
I'm trying to be a quiet.
Tonight we're trying to end at 10:30.
Are we?
What's today?
Are we really?
We
9 minutes?
That's for 9 minutes.
10:45.
People got things
10:45.
Do you have
things? We got real. We kind of.
We veered a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet.
About next person.
What
are we talking about?
Like next week?
Like are you posing a
right
question?
Now.
So people are just kind of having comments, but they're kind of talking to each other.
Read them.
But if y'all have any questions, please send us questions. Ask the people questions. I was asked, Hurston, where do you find, or I don't know where you find all these amazing guests, but keep it up.
I don't either, but I'm here
He
for
finds
it.
them at De La Soul. It is.
Yes.
It is Miami's premier day party for
professionals.
Follow at Social Exchange
with
X.
Yes.
CHANG. Miami. Next month.
Can we talk about? I don't know.
Go ahead.
But I don't know. Like, I think for me, the biggest thing of going straight from undergrad to graduate school is just like some guilt that I have.
Why?
And I don't know. Like, there's guilt in different senses, and it might be different. So I think it's important to share. So from my experience, I think there's guilt in owing money for my undergrad career. I do have debt from loans in undergrad. So I think there's some guilt there, knowing that I don't know if I'll be able to pay it. I don't know when I'll get a job. So that's a guilt there. But there's also the guilt where I see my sister getting engaged. I see her, wanting to have a family. And there's two of us. So I think my parents are like, okay, what's next? Do you have a boyfriend? Do you have a family? So that guilt coming from a traditional Mexican family.
Yeah.
So there's guilt in that sense because people don't know, like, it's difficult to explain you're in a PhD program to your parents if they don't even know what college is.
Yeah.
Right, so how do you explain, like, I went 4 years, now I'm going to go another 4, possibly 5.
Yeah.
Now I'm leaving the
she feels
state.
That same guilt. Yeah.
Who?
Andra. You're Andra.
Yeah.
She's saying she feels that same guilt. Yeah.
So I think it's been difficult to talk about with my parents. They've been a little bit more accepting, and I'm like, you can't compare me. My sister and I are very different people. She's met somebody, she's ready to move on. I'm so busy with school that I can't commit. Yeah. So just that conversation, that guilt there, I think in my community, there's always been that whole narrative where, like, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get a good job, and I'm going to have my parents retire early. Because I'm going to pay everything for them. Yeah. So I hear that. I've heard that so many times from, like, my own friends. And to me, I'm like, wow, like, I don't know that I could do that anytime soon for my parents. Like, they're in their 50s and 60s. Like, I don't know that I could even help. I don't even know that I have a secure job after this. And I'm getting you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's just that guilt. Like, there's so much going on while you're, like, all this family, this personal stuff while you're trying to get a PhD. So all of this kind of mixes in and affects how fast or how slow you progress throughout the PhD or throughout any degree. or any school you have.
Brittany's saying yes. Oh my God, yes. She said sing it, Brittany.
Sing it, yes.
So that's some guilt that I have.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What do y'all think about that?
I don't necessarily have guilt. It's more or less accepting a fate for me.
Yeah.
Expand on that.
Well, when you tell people you're going to start a PhD program, like you may post it on Facebook, you get like 100 likes, right? Congratulations and all this.
A couple hundred more.
Right.
Yeah.
But people really don't understand why you can't go out. Like for me, it was like, and I'm also a professional photographer, so that's how I pay my bills.
Yeah, go ahead, plug yourself in, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, 360 photography. So
yeah.
So it's like when I get done shooting, like at Tech Beats and Bites, I'm going home to read, and people are like, oh, well, why can't you go out? And it's like, I have homework, and they're like, no, you don't. Like I have friends like, do that later, and it's like, do you realize what I'm doing? And then I had to catch myself and go, no, they don't. And it was hard to accept that because at the end of the day, it's my journey. That people look at you and go, oh, well, you've gotten through school, so this is going to be easy. It's not. And then, like you said, I can only imagine from a woman's perspective dealing with it because there's other quote-unquote implications of, like you said, about being a possible mother, possible wife, and all these other things. But it's hard all the way around where, like, one time I saw him at Tech Beats and Bites, and he had a book with him. Like trying to read the book and trying to like watch the thing, and people don't understand our sacrifice of we gotta read, we gotta do these things that when you graduate, people then come back go, oh, you graduated, I'm gonna like this status and it's great. Like you don't understand the sacrifice, the social sacrifice, the family, the financial sacrifice to get to this point, and it's hard to explain to people. So for me, I built a semi-social network of other PhDs to lean on. Whether it's my committee
I remember you messaging me when we first started.
Yeah. Like it was like I reached out to him like, man, it's another person that's doing this because it feels lonely because it is different. Like, you know, when you start college, there's more people starting at a bachelor's level. Obviously, a lot of people don't graduate. To your point, then you get to the master's level, then there's even fewer people. So when you get to this level, it's like, who can I talk to about APA? I hit him up like, man, I don't understand APA. Like, who even understands that? So it's a loneliness that you need to build that structure to get through. Otherwise, that's how you just quit. Because it's like, man, like, I envy you that you had someone in the family, a group of people to kind of pull off of. Because there's nobody in my family that even relates. So it's like, oh, you're doing a PhD. And it's like, yeah, I'm doing a PhD. Like, my dad's like, well, what's your PhD in? And it's like, no, I don't have it. He was like, well, you just passed the test. I'm like, no, this means this. And you're like, oh God. So it's you just kind of accepting that fate.
What about you, John?
So I don't know that. Okay, so the first thing is, I roped everybody into my journey. Like, if I'm about to sit up here and suffer for an undefined amount of years,
oh, y'all
everyone is coming. Everyone is going through all of my emotions. And, you know, I am lucky to have had a support structure that's pretty strong. At least starting with my family, who just, a solid half of them understand and get it and know how emotionally taxing this can be. So when I don't answer the phone, they call and I just don't answer the phone, it's no hard feelings. And then the ones who weren't sure, I was like, let me explain. And like I said, everybody's coming. I think the most difficult thing for me to come to terms with, so I was in school for so long. I've been in school, I'm 25, about to be 26. 26 on the 26th of October, Scorpio gang. So I've been in school for so long that 3 years ago, when I started having trouble in my program and I actually like strongly considered leaving, I didn't know what I was gonna do. Like I was kind of like one of those things. I just thought I had 3 or 4 more years to figure it out. And when the decision was like right there, I was like, well, my childhood bedroom is looking nice. And so I think that was the only. Most of the time, I'm moving so rapidly in the direction of my dreams, like guilt isn't really a thing. Like I don't really stop to kind of sit in that emotion.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it was like, it was panic and it was anxiety because it was like, if I'm not here, school has become such a big part of me and what I do. Like, what am I gonna do? Who am I? What do I want to accomplish? And so, luckily, that happened early because I was about 23 at the time, and I was like, okay, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to accomplish outside of this academic stuff? Once I came to terms with that, school actually got a lot easier too, because it was like it became part of a larger picture.
Yeah, like an end goal.
Yeah, it wasn't the end all be all. It was a means to an end.
Yeah.
And that's also around the time that I started thinking about leaving science and going, okay, wait a minute, this science career ain't looking too promising. Science funding is getting cut. The average age to get your first R1, which is like the major science research grant, is like 43.
What's an R1? You said
it's a major grant from the National Institute of Health. Mm-hmm. That's when you made it. Like, that's like the beginning of the career. Like, that's like Cardi B winning Best New Hip Hop Artist at the
I'm screaming
seriously at the awards. Like, that's what that is. That's the R1.
Like, you've made it.
Right. So then, like I said, I'm 26.
And that's
so
20
like
years
43. Old. So like I was like, this ain't the life for me. So I think, that's just been a lot different, because I did have the support network of like people who understood what I was going through, but nobody in so much depth that they could understand, like, crap, I don't know what I'm gonna do after this.
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody who was getting a PhD in biomedical science, and my friends who were in the program with me are just as lost as I was.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, but still here. And honestly, like, I think graduate school has been really character building in a way that, like, in a way that a bunch of other things were supposed to be and weren't. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I feel like now, like, and you guys probably really, like, when we graduate, like, ain't nothing that we can't do. Like, nothing. Between learning how to manage your emotions, learning how to manage stress, learning how to manage the workload, learning how to manage social interactions with other people in these, like, chronic high stress conditions, like, it really is a prep for, like, real life that my bachelor's degree wasn't.
Yeah, I think too, real quick, my residency instructor brought up an interesting point. She said, you're not going to graduate unless you're willing to let this degree change you as a person. And I was always been kind of a stubborn person, so I was like, nah. And this nah, fam. So she grades in purple because she said psychologically it's bad to see red. And this woman would take a paper and it looked like Barney bled on it.
Yeah.
So the ego was like hurt, and she was like, you can't approach this like a master's student. If you're not gonna let this change you, you're going to fail. And as I look back a year now, as I was saying earlier, I even look at my Facebook posts on how I write. I change. This process, if you don't let it change you, you can't approach it like any other degree. And I know for me, that was probably the hard part, because I had other degrees. So it's like, well, you got through this. It's like, this is different.
Yeah.
So, and that support structure, and on a humorous level, she was like, you need a vice to get through this.
You sure
alcohol.
do.
Yeah.
Not even in a doctor.
And she brought up very extreme circumstances with former students I won't get into of the things they did to get through it, not drugs, thank God. But she was like, the reason you do this is because you get so buried in all this stuff, you lose your humanity trying to be a student. And I've seen it where it's like, after reading, you just literally are just like, I joke like everything I say is according to. And if you're in a PhD program, you know what that's like. Everything is a reference. And it's like, no, you have to still be a human, a person, while you're doing this process. And I know at this point of it, you start to learn, okay, this is the person I am now.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily going to be the person I am whenever I finish this, but I can accept the person now. So that's kind of really been eye-opening for me.
Yeah. A lot of folks are saying that grad school will beat you down. That's what Andrea said.
Oh, yeah.
Listen.
Mario said the writing critique was jarring when I first encountered it in grad school.
Me too.
Mario was an English major.
Yeah.
My professor always told... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I feel like even that, like you said, you're always finding yourself saying, according to this person. My first critique, I thought, I can't critique these experts' work. So I found myself losing myself in this critique. Like, I would say, this person says this is what sounds credible. So therefore, this person's work is But I would never say, in my own interpretation, this does not work. This does not address certain things. So I always felt myself losing my own voice. And to this day, it's hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard to critique someone else's work that you've been taught to respect. You've been taught to see, be seen as someone who knows it all. My own mentor, she'll say, like, challenge some of the stuff I say. I don't know everything. So that, for me, is a big struggle.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this. So Kevin said, y'all scarring me away from grad school. And I want to say something that I've never felt so stupid like I did my second semester of my master's program. Look. I felt extremely humbled. And my professor told me, he still tells me this, if you knew everything, you wouldn't need to be here. If you knew this shit, you would not need to be here. Right. You would not need to be in a doctoral program.
And also, nothing worth having comes easy. Like, grad school is fucking difficult.
It's hard. I'll say this, though. I've become an avid reader. At this point, I read not because it's an assignment. I read because I want to learn this knowledge from me. Mm-hmm. And I'm not reading these bullshit, easy articles. I'm reading some fucking hard shit. Like, shit that, like...
You gotta see the books he's got in here.
Blows, like, this... like, I read this shit and it's like, whoa. Like, my English is pretty good. Like, I've read hard things, but I just got humbled. Like, I just got humiliated academically and intellectually. But there's a certain type of beauty in that. Because to me, if I don't know something, that means there's still something for me to learn. Right. And that, to me, is, if anything, motivation to keep going. Humility, I think, it can be a good thing. Go ahead.
So, one thing that I think that we didn't really talk about, I mean, you alluded to it a little bit with wanting to talk about the intersection of race and gender and then class, right? So, like, all of us are sitting up here and all of us will get our PhDs, but I think it's super important to realize that the PhD doesn't define you as a person. Right. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make you any better in our, like, shared journey all forward together. When I first, so I had trouble and then I ended up switching labs. And when I switched labs, I had to completely start over in the third year of my program. And my boss went from being a white man and a white woman to just a white woman. Change. And one of the first things that she did was try and get me to write for a grant. And when I wrote for the minority grant, there was a part that she had to write. And I don't have a boss that knows me very well. I'm really not an open book. When I go to school, I don't talk. I put in my headphones, do my experiments, and I go home because of the social experiences that I've had. But she wrote into this grant, and I think everyone will see the error in this, that, what were those exact words? Basically, she wrote that children of color or students of color are significantly economically disadvantaged, and it makes it hard for them to excel academically, and so that I would then benefit so much from this grant. Just explained that, bitch, I'm upper middle class. Like, you're not finna sit up here and make me, because I'm black, a poor child from humble beginnings. That's not how my story, this is not my story. And, you know, when that happens, I was pissed. Primarily because, like, my parents didn't work this hard for me to still, like, be like a poor child from humble beginnings in someone's eyes. But, you know, also just because it was an assumption that was made about me based off of little to no actual facts. Like, I speak well, I dress well, everything that, like, would lead to that assumption was not true in my case. And so to me, that was a reality check of, like, okay, you know, I can exist in this environment and I can speak my proper English and I can wear my hair in professional ways and whatever, but at the end of the day, if someone is dedicated to misunderstanding me, that's what they're gonna do. And I think that's super relevant for all of us, because we're not gonna wear a PhD on our shoulder. And, you know, the people who mess with you are going to mess with you regardless.
And one thing I love your story, because everyone's kind of commenting. And you said something powerful. We're not going to wear this thing. right? Whiteness wears it.
Right.
It inherently.
It exudes it.
It's an inherent wear, right?
Yes.
Like, what I love about us is that we didn't come in here with, like, a blazer, suit and tie. We came in here as we are, right? This doesn't define us, right? And this is something that's it's beautiful about us. Especially, I see it a lot in our generation. There was a meme that came out that I wear a blazer with my headphones, like I'm playing trap music or some shit. I don't know if you remember that, right?
On the way to the farmer's market after yoga, listening to trap music.
So
on my way to teach at FI.
Yeah, she be posting these stories.
I'm like watching out for my students.
She posted a picture of her recently on Instagram, and she has some low top 11s, some J's 11s.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, like that. But to someone, that's not a doctoral student.
Right. It's
you
not
are
what it
you're
like.
wearing J's?
Exactly.
That I wanted to cover.
Like,
what does
a
doctoral student look like?
That's not a doctoral student.
Not us.
That's not a doctoral student. Like, you get a hoodie. Like, what?
Yeah.
You're not a doctoral student.
A hoodie and chucks.
Like, yo, it's cold outside.
But you got natural hair.
Right.
Like, I think that's where I
on it.
like if somebody were to say that, that's where I get cocky, and that's where I'm like, okay, but how are you trying to dismantle this power system and you get cocky real quick?
Right.
Because I'll be like, oh yeah, but I'm your professor.
Right.
So like they'll be like,
So
oh,
check
she's
your
so
phone.
cute. She knows
Oh,
21 Savage or something. So I've heard that from my students. I'm like, yeah, I'm real cute. Whatever you want to say. But who's up here? And then in that sense, I'm like, wait, no, that's not.
But it's hard.
Problematic.
It's hard not to because everyone here has earned it, right? To be at their point. And
but we can be better than the people who.
And I'll be honest.
Not always, though.
But
not always.
Some
people,
right, they push it out of you. Like, I admire that you guys have figured it out because it's taken me a long time to get to that point. Because to not be as quote-unquote cocky, because as a professor, I teach just like this. I'll be in Tim's and a t-shirt, and it's like, well, where's Professor Stewart at? I don't say nothing. I'll be like, hi, I'm Professor Stewart. And it's like, I was like, but if I had like ripped jeans and my name was Chad or something, and it's like,
not Chad.
Chad.
You know, so it's like these assumptions that we have, and it's like, it's hard to balance that humble with being objective, at least for me.
So I want Mara said, y'all be careful doing that. I listened to DMX before work and damn near slapped the entire room during my first meeting.
That's dope. That's real right there.
Now, but one of my professors always tells me, don't use your knowledge as a weapon. And to me, growing up, I legit thought you had to be, in order to be smart, you had to be white. I legitimately thought that.
Same.
Like I cannot be smart unless I'm white. Someone who looked like us, we can't be smart. That's not what I've been taught. That's not what we can't be smart. And you could only be smart if you were white. And it wasn't probably until my master's program that I started realizing that I could be smart. And it was probably until this year that I realized, shit, I think of myself as a smart person. I never thought that about myself until probably like a couple months ago. And now that I have acquired, and I'm acquiring new language, new ways of thinking, new logics, I'm trying to be very careful of how to use this language, use this knowledge. But I'll be honest with you, when someone challenges me on some shit, especially on some ignorant, or when I go back home to North Carolina, or when I'm here dealing with some problematic people, because there's some problematic Latinos in Miami, right?
Very.
So that's when I see it. There's problematic lots of people, period. But that's when I see it really come out. When someone says something in it, and I know it wasn't malicious, okay, we can talk about that. But when someone says some shit, and I've gotten into it, people who look just like me, I get into it.
Bro,
that's when like the academic, and I know that I'm using my knowledge as a weapon comes out, and I'm like, whoa, I need to chill a little bit. But do I?
No.
I mean, what do y'all think?
Well, I just gotta be careful. I'm sorry.
I don't want to be that. Like, granted, like, we've probably worked hard enough to be that person. But I don't want to be that person. Like, my whole thing is, like, being better than those people. Those people who use knowledge or class or their privilege as, like, a way to position themselves over other people. Even women do it a lot. Like, I'm educated, so I'm better than you, you stripper. Like, I don't want to be that kind of person.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that.
I'm not saying in that sense. I'm saying when someone tells you some shit like, you know what, Trump, Obama should have been born in the United States. you know,
even that,
those type of things.
Yes, even that. It's Ignorance is gonna be there.
I think you. I don't want to be
drawn into. No, see, I don't want to be drawn into that because if someone was to say all black people are dumb, my mere presence, my existence, and the things that I've done is enough.
Yes.
To dispute that. Mm-hmm. I don't have to engage.
Not all the time. Not all the time.
I don't ever have to engage them. I don't.
Not even in the classroom, because it happens to me a lot in the classroom.
That's where
someone says something. Like, not even that. That's too simple of an argument. Like, but I get. But
it's
people
the
will
underlying sentiment behind a lot of things that we would encounter in like the classroom. And that's my thing. Like, and I'm sorry. I'm just gonna finish the thought and let you go. So like. I'm gonna let you finish.
You a preacher?
Okay,
wrap it up.
I got you. I got you. We're about to take an offering. We're about to go with an offering. Go ahead.
We're in grad school, so ain't nobody. Pass the plate.
No. You gotta go to Wendy's at 99 cents.
Now 4 for 4. 4 for 4. Yo. 4 for 4.
I'm screaming.
Yeah, no, even in the classroom, like I feel like there's an additional like tact on outside of like being present and needing to like learn for yourself. Mm-hmm. Like we too often accept the additional emotional labor of educating the ignorant people that are around us in the same position, and like that is a detriment to our education. So you don't have to engage them. You can actually just focus on yourself, because if they wanted, especially in this information era, if they wanted to learn and be better people, there's a show called Woke Wednesdays on Instagram Live at 9:30.
I see. 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. I'm always late. I'm not logging on before 9:30.
It's okay. You good.
There's Google. You know, there are books that they could read. They could go sit in a race class and gender or power, privilege, and oppression class. Like, you don't have to take up that mantle of I'm gonna engage all of your ignorant asses on shit on top of being of needing to learn for myself. Like, that's not something that we have to do. It's something you can do, but I personally will not.
I think that's the beauty of
and let's close it out.
Our perspective. Yeah. I agree. I don't think you have to do it all the time, but I know there are teachable moments.
Yeah.
And I pick and choose those moments. Like, the younger me would have been like, but those moments as an educator myself, it's like, well, how can I, because I've lived in other places around the world, and I've been in places where literally I was the first black person that they met that wasn't military or played sports.
Same.
So it's like I've taught French students, Italian students, Spanish students, and it's like, well, you're a black man. So we have this image. So there are times where, do I want to call it, I jokingly call it being the ambassador? Fuck no. But it's like, this is an opportunity for me to not only teach, but to learn. Because real quick, there's a short story that I had to teach this to my students in Chicago. They would come from foreign places, and then they get a map of Chicago that was reduced to 40% of where they said they can and cannot go. And I would be like, well, wait a minute. Do you know the leader of the free world at this time actually lives in an area that you were told not to go? Mm-hmm. You know, so I was like, so how would you feel if someone told you in Paris that you can't go here?
Not Paris.
Yeah. So, parlez-vous Francois? Okay. So those are exchanges that I feel that it's not my right, but here's an opportunity. It's not invasive. It's not aggressive. But there are sometimes, and I had to learn this, everybody ignorant isn't malicious. There are times you're right. You can kind of go, you know what? If I say something, I'm going to put these hands on you. But then there are other times that, oh my God, based on where maybe you were from, maybe all you think and see is this.
I agree.
So if I have an opportunity to make you go, that black dude in the hoodie might not be a thug, he might be a PhD student, then I feel like I've done something.
I agree, man.
That's valid.
That's facts. That's facts.
Yeah, no,
check out if anyone has YouTube. I don't know everyone has access to internet, but if anyone has access to YouTube, check out the danger of a single story. And that's kind of what it gets at. This idea that everyone just has one story.
Yeah.
We have to challenge ourselves to think that we all have multiple stories. So people saying I love his perspective. Oh snap, breaking out the French. So let's close it up. Closing comments. Do you want to go first and kind of thank Lada?
I'm thankful for the opportunity. I'm glad we all got together.
Thank you. You suggested the topic.
You facilitated. I can't take the credit. I've learned a lot, and I think for me the takeaway is the fact that as PhD students we can have this conversation and amiably disagree without like throwing stuff is the beauty of the PhD process, because you learn to disagree. Like, you know, you're passionate about what you're passionate about, vice versa, and we may disagree, but here we can go, okay, I disagree, but I learned something, and we can be better for it. So I think this is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So I said earlier that feelings are not facts, and you know, I think the most important thing that comes out of going to college, out of pursuing higher education, is learning how to digest information and separate facts from fiction, essentially. Learning how to like take a statement and go, is there peer-reviewed evidence that shows that this is true, or was this based off of one problematic study and I should probably discard that? I'm saying. So like I know, and that's in all of our fields, right? If somebody goes, the best way to educate Mexican American kids in math is to like you would be able to see your specialty to be able to be like, okay, hold on, let me do a lit search on that. Actually, like, let me make sure that what you're saying is actually factual. And in this age, this information age where you can go online and Google anything and find something that supports your statement, it's super important to be able to digest information. So if one was to go to school, I would say it should be for that reason. And that's even a privileged statement of being like, you should just go to school to digest information. Look, I know, I get it, okay? But, you know, like I said, the PhD doesn't define you. So, like, if you were going to go, like, find a reason. Find a reason, like, I want to be able to conduct objective conversations. Find a reason, like, I want to be able to help other people digest information in an objective way. Don't go because you just want to be better than the next person, or because you want to go stunt at your high school reunion. Like, I don't know. Like,
it's coming up.
It's not the reason. 10 years.
20 is next year for me, so.
Real. No, but that's real.
No, like, it's find a reason to ground us. And
real.
one thing we didn't talk about is the importance of, like, self-care during this course of
There's a
study.
lot of things we didn't talk about.
There's a lot.
So you can follow us and we can speak on it. Like,
we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. But go ahead.
Okay. I would just say that from my own experience, I would say there's a lot of people, especially for those that say like, oh, you're kind of scaring me from grad school, from a PhD program. It is scary, but you're capable. You don't know how much you're capable of until you're going through all of this. You're like, wow. And you will find, even though like for me, like my parents don't know what it is like, they support me, and they whatever they can do. If they're stressing with me, they're there for me. So I would say there's a lot of people, especially a lot of white people, that are saying they make general statements about what it's like to be a person of color, and they get more specific. So if you really care about putting your own experience out there, I would say join the master's, the PhD, and really bring your story, because you don't want other people making generalizations about you without having your own experience. Because I'm still that hood girl from Washington State.
And I would just close it up by saying that we all have dreams, and some of us are very fortunate enough to be able to pursue them, because not all of us are very fortunate enough to do that. I know what I want to do is post graduation is I want to go back to technical school and get a degree in like automotive tech, like fixing cars.
You trying to go back to school?
Like fixing, like community college, like fix. I want to learn how to fix cars. I want to get that degree because I want to open up a nonprofit. So low-income children and single mothers can come and get their cars fixed for free, and I want to tie that into education somehow. So this, to me, is like, I'm very fortunate to be here. This is a step to the next thing that I want to do. And I would say that, to me, I do think that as people of color, I think we have a moral obligation to the younger ones coming up behind us. I truly believe that. And I'm big on mentorship. For me, I love mentoring young black and brown boys. That's like I love doing that. And I think we do have a moral obligation to that. And I do want to encourage more folks to do that. And if a doctoral program could be a vehicle for that, I think that's dope. I think continue to do that. But as Kalan said, this doctorate, this PhD does not define us. And as Laura said, beautifully said, like, you'll realize how this shit what you could do. Like, so I really want to encourage folks to pursue it. I wish you would have talked about funding a little bit more. There is money out there for you. You don't have to pay for this shit out of pocket. There are graduate assistantships. There are TAs. Reach out to us. Like, everyone has an Instagram handle. We'll definitely have a part 2. Reach out to. I'm just like putting it out there. Reach out to them. Like, everyone has a story.
It goes down in the DMs.
It goes down. Yes, it goes down.
Got stuck. He was
pregnant. Can y'all give out your info? If y'all have questions, please reach out. These are amazing people. You want to give your information real quick?
Instagram, I'm at year 60 year 60 photography. So that's YEAR, the number 60, PHOTOG. If I can help in any way, any questions, any ideas. I don't know it all, but if I can't help you, I'll try to point you to someone who can.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Okay, my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook are all Keelan Bishop. Straight through. KILAN Bishop, like the chess piece.
I like the preacher.
Shut up.
You got a little preacher? I see you, Bishop. Okay.
Shut up.
Bishop.
No, so, you were talking about funding. Like, my program, they pay me to go to school and they pay me a stipend to have a monopoly on all of my time. Yeah, so, like, if anybody has any questions about particularly biomedical science PhDs, reach out. I answer eventually.
She does. She does eventually.
I can't recall all my information, but my Instagram is at Lotus with 2 S's and then 23. And I'm usually really good with questions about anything in terms of funding. I am getting my PhD fully funded, and it was through an undergrad experience. So if you're an undergrad, I would highly recommend just contacting me, and I'll put you in touch with some people around here. But yeah.
And I tagged everybody on the Instagram promo video.
We are
on
tagged.
Instagram. I don't like the way y'all said that.
Follow. like a picture.
Someone said I'm gonna check your photos
on Instagram or Facebook. People are saying go stun at your high school reunion.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thank you for tuning in. First live audience member. Thanks so much for tuning in, y'all. I hope y'all learned something. And we'll see you next week. Next week, we're gonna have our first older person on the show. We're gonna take it back.
Are you being ageist? Why'd you have to say they were older?
Because they are older. It's a characteristic. He is now a professor in the education program here at FIU, but he grew up picking cotton. In Texas, and now he is a professor. We're gonna talk about his journey.
Switching up.
So that episode is called "Started from the Bottom." Now we're here.
I love that. Yeah, Drake is gonna be in the background.
I thought you were gonna say Drake is gonna be here. I'm like,
no, we're trying to be woke. But so tune in next week. It's gonna be amazing. He's also a jazz professional performer, so it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna play music.
All right, bye y'all. Share the episode. Tell a friend. Have a good night.
Everything. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
Adios. This is getting